second part of NXTMICE State of the Industry. Here at this table we have 20 leaders in the industry representing what we are all about. Our industry that since yesterday opened up a little bit. Gradually but slowly we can do more and more, and so this is the moment to look forward, the future of our industry. And here, for the coming hour, we will critically but down to earth and positive. We will reflect on our possibilities, opportunities, and how we can move on from this point onwards in the new now. Before I do that, I will go to my neighbor, Erik-Jan Ginjaar, General Director of Postillion Hotels. You were not afraid to go ahead with this, right? You took this risk. You took up the gauntlet to organize this event. You have been working on it for days, and I was able to see it backstage. Well, I'm very proud, first of all, because of the fact that you all responded to our invitation to talk together today and also to set the example together. And the example is showing the rest of the world that we can meet, that we are allowed to meet, and that together we can make it work, the business events industry. So very proud, first of all. Isn't that the positive note that I was looking for exactly? And there is a lot of media coverage for this event, by the way. Several newspapers wrote about it, and we have many journalists present today to look at what goes on, and especially also international attention. That is correct. This morning we were informed that even in the US people are looking at what we're doing. And so this is why we took care of live translation for this event. And I think this tells us how important it is that as an industry you demonstrate that you can come to the Netherlands and that events like these can be organized and that we are longing for our industry friends to come to us. So I'm very, very happy that they're also watching. Welcome to all of you. So a warm welcome to all viewers, all guests, international guests, not only from abroad, but also national guests. And we want the market to get kick-started today. And what are we going to do? We're going to address 3 subjects today that are top of mind at this moment when we look ahead and look at the future of our industry. First of all, we will look at the psychological dilemmas. So we work with people. And we have to really take an interest in what our target groups believe and what they're into. Second subject is, of course, the economic challenges that we have to face. Because if we start working, we will definitely run into all kinds of economic and financial challenges. And how can we best prepare for that? And the third subject today is the international perspective. I think Erik-Jan has already said it. We hope that also the international market is going to get kick-started. We hope that it's going to get started, and how and when, of course. We will take the next hour to debate these 3 subjects, and then after that we go back to the 3 different locations that you already know about. In Amersfoort we have 20 people together in the Postillion Hotel there, and in the second hour, hosted by my colleague Rogier Elshout, they will debate about the psychological element that we discuss here at this table. They will look into that further. In Bunnik we have Maarten Wessels, and Maarten will host a session on the economic challenges. And they will debate amongst 20 people over there. And just a little bit further down the road, another building of Postillion, we will look at the international perspective. And you, as viewer at home, what about me? Well, you can participate online in the sub-sessions later on. You can ask questions in the chat, you can place your remarks, and we will share them in that hours, making sure that you're involved too. And at the very end, at 4:45, of course, we will have a plenary session. We will summarize the day, and we will, of course, then go ahead to the digital drinks. So don't be afraid to pour a drink yourself at home, because it's 5 o'clock, it's okay. So that is what we are going to do. We will start with the table of 20 right here in Amsterdam, and the 20 people that I'm going to talk to will be introduced to you in this video. Well, you see that we have some of the very best leaders in the industry and a great representation of what we are all about. And let's get started with our first subject of today, which we call the psychological dilemmas, because what we do is we know that people are at the heart of everything we do. We need to know what they want and what their desires are. And only when their thoughts are positive, only then we will see that events are being organized. And this is exactly what we want to address today. First of all, will our clients be ready to give us the assignment to go and organize an event, or will they wait until someone else starts first? Second question, second dilemma. Do people who attend these events, will they come? Will they attend? Does an employee or a guest or a specific target audience, are they not afraid to go to a new meeting? Will they stay at home or will they go? And then when they come, are they ready? Because large parts of the economy are hit hard, and then once we are allowed to go, it is only a question whether events will start or whether companies will first focus internally on how they can get the people back to work and how they can internally organize things. So it offers loads of opportunities and questions. I don't have the answers to these questions, and I'll ask these questions to my guests here at the table. Okay, so you talk to our clients. These are your members, right? What are the things that you are hearing? Are people going to go ahead, Dirk Prijs? Well, my clients tell me that they are working on it, and it is still unclear as to what is allowed and what is impossible. So my idea is that we will probably start with smaller internal events, and then in the fall events will grow bigger, but primarily we will start out small. But the willingness and the facts that my clients are calling about, how do I need to do that, how can I take care of it, everybody is very, very eager. So that's a very positive vibe. So you specifically talk about, first of all, organizing internal smaller events. Why do you think this is the first step? Well, I think they just want to see how things go. It's safer, of course, and also many people are now working from home, and you do want them to feel connected to the company again, so lay that foundation again. So that's a great opportunity there, and then you will build on your external relations again, your sponsoring, etc. But we will start out small, that's what I believe. Also for safety reasons, yes. So for safety reasons, and also because you have to start your communication internally, and only then can you go externally, right? Yes, we have to create teams all over again. You know, we have had numerous Zoom calls, and that's all well, but, you know, in the long run, I have a small team, 3. You just miss the fact that you are face-to-face in real life, and especially for the bigger companies. So now you directly talk to event managers within organization, but Peter Bas, Dirk must have that too, but Peter Bus, you will probably talk to the higher management of event organizations. How do they see it? Because the management probably is very willing and very eager. They see the opportunities and they see how valuable it might be to organize something. But how do you see the higher layers in an organization? Well, actually, the exact same story as Dirk is telling us. So they really want to bring in people live under, of course, certain and safe conditions, but keeping your work relationship based on Zoom calls, that is very difficult because you miss a lot of the communication in that way. So, yeah, I see that everybody is really willing to do that, and especially in the fall, we will see a lot of hybrid forms. So we will have a community somewhere on a live location, and we will have an online community. So it's about the physical contact, right? And the desire. So you're not afraid that people will stay away from online? You believe that it's going to be hybrid, so and online and real life? Yes, but it also depends on the type of customer. We have an association of insurance managers and risk managers. This is a specific target group, of course, that really considers what they are doing, and they do prefer to bring the entire association together in the physical world. So it really depends on the target group. So part of the question is, of course, the fact that as an event manager, you might be very willing, but do all others want to come? Well, let's talk to someone else. Well, you deal with tourists as well, but also large events. What is your estimation on this? If we are allowed, are people going to travel en masse to Amsterdam or other cities? Or do you think that any visitor of an event or tourist, or might they be reluctant? Geert Udo, what do you think? Well, I think that it's very important, and it's what we are talking about. We need to build that confidence, and this is why it's great that we're here. It might be a small event today, but it's a huge step, which is very important in any city, country, and throughout the world. And we can't know the future. We don't have a crystal ball. Are we going to rush back to the old normal, or does reality force us to go step by step and do trial and error and to build that confidence? And or is it show don't tell? Everyone wants to go really fast, but the biggest risk is, of course, when we go too fast and then things go back to worse, which is even more disastrous than going step by step, right? And I do believe that many people are very eager to come over, and many people like us feel that it would be a very positive thing to meet each other in the physical world. But we probably need a hybrid model for that. It offers us opportunities. So basically, if I understand you correctly, we have a responsibility, right? We can be the accelerator, but we can also hit the brakes. We want to be the accelerator, right? But we also have to have the courage to hit the brake if we need to. So we have to be sure that whatever we're doing, it's safe and it's good. And we rather take it too slow than we take it too fast. Yes, that's correct. So I guess all of us here, we should have a long-term vision. And if we can be successful, if we can keep calm and build that chain of confidence and expand on that, if we can build that, you have a very solid foundation. So I do hope that we can succeed to hold on to that positive energy, to grab these opportunities in such a way that on the long run we benefit from it, all of us. How do you do that here, Erik-Jan? Because you have a responsibility in building that confidence, right? Are people afraid to come or not? Do you think that it'll go really fast, or do you think that any participant in an event will be very cautious and reluctant to come over? Well, I think we have said that a couple of times already. We need to set an example. And that's what I notice. Everybody's looking at everybody else. Who's first? Which fair is going to go ahead? There is one fair in Germany that is going to go ahead. So the most important thing is to build that confidence step by step and show everybody that it's possible and basically provide that proof that we can do it in a safe way. That's the only way forward. Yes, Riemer Rijpkema, where are you? That's you, that's right. Riemer, director of CLC Vecta. You are an inspiration platform for the industry, basically generating ideas as to how you can get to work. So, what is your opinion? How do you see the responsibility of the industry itself to create that confidence? Well, I think it has been said already. Our strength is to organize and control. And I think it is especially important to really demonstrate to visitors and organizers that we are in control of safety and health risks. That is very important. And Erik-Jan has said it as well. So we need insight, we need the data. And we should start collecting data together, actually, to also collect that burden of proof, if you will. What data are you talking about? Well, visitor data and number of visitors during an event, how they behave, whether the rules that you have in place, whether they work or that you need to anticipate in a different way. And of course, if you can demonstrate with the data that you have that events that are organized in a certain way go really well and that you can create that context for excellence, then this is proof that you can use for the authorities to take the next step. And that is a process. So we need to look at our healthcare service and the municipalities and other authorities, to, of course, learn from what we have and also use data to participants and visitors and convince them in that way that you are in control and that it is safe to go to events that we organize. In summary, basically building that confidence is also what you can demonstrate and collecting facts and being able to communicate to the outside world. Like, this is what happens when people visit our events. This is what they like. This is what they don't like. So you're basically calling on the industry to share data. Well, I believe that we're in an era in which it is a prerequisite to do that if we want to open up, or at any rate organize any event. So we will have to do that to make sure we can all breathe. Marco ten Hoor of Hotel Management School Stenden. How do you see that in your locations? How could you create that confidence with people who work there and study there? Because we're talking about psychology for visitors and employees and participants. So what would be the fringe conditions for you, for them to feel safe? Well, what is very difficult for us, there are no solid rules, so who knows best? And we are working on it ourselves as well. And I always try to combine the guts with confidence, having the guts and having the confidence. And we, of course, educate the next generation with our hotel schools. And we are working really hard on building that confidence in the market. Our modules for the events market are the most popular modules, but we do see a decline now. So we have a lot of questions within our educational landscape. So how can we give the new students the confidence that this is a future to invest in? So you see the decline over the past month? Yes, you have to register for, an event module. And everyone is asking, how is the branch going to be? What's it going to be like in the future? And how are we going to communicate about this and possible new conditions? And we need to take students by the hand, because things have changed, the reality has changed. And how do you do that? Because this is the moment that students register, right, for a program. So how did you think about that? Well, at this moment, I think that you can prepare students for the future. You can train them agile. We went online too, which is difficult because a hotel school is all about social and not about social distance. And what we started to do is we started up research. So what are these changes going to bring to society? So basically this is a baseline study. So we started doing research from the very beginning, which is what it should be. So then, the next question, how do you create that confidence with your clients? Because they will probably be insecure. A visitor can be insecure. Of course, as an industry, we want to be the accelerator, and we have a huge interest in not going too fast. What have you noticed? What are the buttons to use to boost that confidence? Well, of course, I know some customers want to go all for it, and we want to protect them. And we need to tell them what is allowed and what is not allowed, or what is possible. But it starts with the question, what does a customer want to achieve with the event? And can you achieve it online or only live, depending on the question. But I like that this subject, confidence, I have a good friend in China, because they are more or less 3 months ahead of us, right? And what we see there is huge events. People go to bars, they go to restaurants. Of course, they work with apps and measuring temperature. There was the big national congress with 3,000 participants. So these are countries that are interesting because they're ahead of us a couple of months. And you see that people gain confidence pretty quickly. That was quite striking to me. So basically what you're saying, once there is a go-ahead from government, people will fall back in their old patterns and they say it's allowed. Well, people are already partying. We saw that yesterday and protesting on Dam Square in Amsterdam, which might be a different connotation, but people are not afraid to take a next step, as we can see. Is there anything else that you have noticed in your communication with event managers? Any other important themes? Well, of course, the biggest worry, especially with international clubs, is that, of course, foreign policy just forms a barrier. Especially with, for example, software company, they just strike everything for 2020, 2021. That is very worrying because that isn't based on anything except based on fear. And that is something we really need to stop. I know we are down to earth here in the Netherlands, but there's no reason to just ignore the coming 2 years and say we will not do any events. And if I talk to organizations that have that in their policy, it's such a powerful medium. You can't just ignore it for years. But isn't that just the shock effect? Maybe some people or managers considered like, okay, let's just strike everything from the books. And maybe these are the ones that'll come back too once things are allowed again. They will realize, I guess everybody realizes that it's important to bring people together, but you have to be willing to. Yes, this is why we are now in the phase of taking these small steps. We need to take these small steps as soon as possible and build on that, because I agree, once we are off, I actually sat down at a table, outside on the terrace, and everything was pretty stressy. Everyone was like, ooh, keep the distance. But then after a while, it started feeling pretty normal. And once we all get used to it, sure, it'll take a while before we are at normal capacity, but things... So you had your third beer, and then you had the feeling that... yes, my headache was not because of worries, but maybe because of the alcohol that started working. But please, that's not a medicine, of course. Okay, that's finishing this subject for now, not completely, because after this hour we will go to Amersfoort to go into more detail. So with guests and everybody online to participate, and they will do that in the form of a debate. And the statement that is used for the debate is: the MICE industry has an important responsibility and role in recovery for the market. So the question is, can we influence it ourselves or do we depend mainly on others? That concludes this subject. Let's go to the second subject, the economic challenge, because we started with the people. That's what it's all about in our industry. But because of the passion for people, bringing them together, creating these great events means that you have to have a healthy economic business model. And at this moment, we see many challenges out there because the careful predictions are that when events are allowed, they will not be cheaper because of social distancing, because preparation takes more time. So it'll be more complex, or maybe not, but I'd love to hear about that, to organize events. And that is, of course, something that creates new dilemmas, because at the same time, the budgets probably won't increase. It is looking like we are going to head for a recession, which means that budgets rather decline than increase. That, of course, raises the question, who will pay for it? What will we see? Maybe the market believes, okay, events are so important, we are willing to pay more. Or will the pressure on our industry grow? And do we need to offer more for less? So, loads of dilemmas. First person I would like to talk to is Nicolette van Erven. Nicolette, is it realistic? Is it expected that events will be more expensive? That is a good question indeed. PCO is, of course, working on that too. And what we see is that certain trends that we already predicted for online are now accelerated. So, what do I mean? Online organization of events and conferences. Of course, it was inevitable that we would have more and more hybrid conferences. It is very fitting with the time that we live in, less traveling, reaching more people that can maybe not afford to travel. And now we are forced to develop these models much faster. And on top of that, we need to take into account social distancing. In one country it's 1 meter, other country is 2 meters. I was talking to Erik-Jan. 1 meter would be actually much better than the 1.5 that we have now in the Netherlands, but who can tell? Yes, we will specifically zoom in on the international events, but many of us predominantly work on the national level. But you have already given us some example. Will we see more hybrid events? We will, as an industry, have to invest more, right? That is your expectation, and this means that things will be more expensive. Yes, so it'll probably, this is my expectation at least. So as an industry, we have to go back to the drawing board and create new business models. Because in the end, all stakeholders will have to pay part of the price, right? Very clear. Stefan Stokkemans then, of Hotel Huis ter Duin. Right, so locations will require more square footage. So I can imagine that when you had 100 people in one room, you would have to use 2 rooms for the same amount of people. I don't know if the costs will double, but the costs will be higher. Is that also your expectation, that it will put pressure on your organization? Well, no doubt. This is one of the reasons that we started a repositioning and whether we want to be active in the segment of large group. But, it is, of course, up to the creativity of any entrepreneur now to find new business models. And when it comes to hospitality, I think many bars and restaurants have demonstrated that they can come up with great alternatives. But square footage, is square footage. And you mentioned confidence. I believe that it has to come from the authorities too. If I look at this roundtable, we are all here. We are all entrepreneurs. And I think we all have demonstrated that we are able to come up with working models, business models that work, and we can offer employment to people. And we deserve the confidence from the authorities that we can do that. But someone has to pick up the tab. But if you look at, what your target groups should be, then this is where your opportunities are. Well, I think that certain destinations and companies will have to reinvent themselves. If I look at Noordwijk, we are at the beach, so we have loads of space. That is an advantage. We were very strong in a certain segment, which would be up to 1,300 people. And now we can try to draw all that to Noordwijk, but that will be very difficult for the coming 2 years. So we have to combine strengths. So now we could, for example, organize an event of 300 and divide it across 3 hotels. So then you still have loads of opportunities. So you can still have a big event, but divide it across 3 locations. But then cost-wise, someone has to then pay for 3 locations. Well, what is cheap and what is expensive? That is subjective. I think price quality balance in the Netherlands is great when you look at destination. And I think we have the flexibility to maneuver here. Also, when you look at the national market, I think it is very fitting to take that into account, especially in the higher segment. You can increase prices. We don't need Corona for that. So then, the caterer's perspective, what about that? If we look at the economic perspective, we will see events. The careful conclusion is that we will have some price pressure. It'll probably be more expensive to organize. Does that apply to catering too? Or would you say, not that much? Michiel Meijer-Mattern. It will definitely apply to catering too. What we have noticed over the past time is that our members have shown a lot of resilience and agility. And at the same time, when it comes to costs, it is the negative side of the spiral. We also have seen that some of our members have been really working hard on what robotics could mean, especially South Korea, without sort of having an influence on the atmosphere of an event, so having controllers at the beginning of an event. And another thing that they run into is, we need to diversify because the world is not the world we used to know. So your members are already thinking about this, and robotization could be a solution or something that could be an option. But again, you also say that there is pressure. Desiree Baltensen of Rotterdam Ahoy, you are a big venue. And I can imagine that this is a blessing, but also a disadvantage. You have loads of space. You might be a more expensive location for that reason, but what are the steps that you're taking? Well, over the past months, we've been brainstorming, drawing, and reviewing. It was just a surrealistic situation that we, of course, all ended up in. And at this moment, we can hardly do anything. We can only host 30 people in the entire building. So we, of course, had to think about it so we can host a training. These smaller rooms are very easy to sell or to market. So you have daily conference packages, that is affordable. But if you go to bigger rooms, and of course we had to sort of recalculate the capacity charts for our rooms. And if you do that, you lose 2/3 of your capacity, which means that you can still host large conferences, but in completely different locations that are very demanding on the audio-visual aspect, and costs will increase for those reasons. And how do you see that discussion with your customer? Because that is what we want to know. It'll not be cheaper. We will probably have some bad weather from the economic perspective, right? So who will pay? What is your prediction? Well, the added costs of Corona could never end up with one party. We would all have to bear these costs. So we will have to talk to our clients, our suppliers, as to what is possible. What are the budgets? And could we come up with more creative solutions, especially for the bigger rooms? Could we have certain equipment? You know, we have to invest in technology. We will have Studio Ahoy. We will have Virtual Ahoy. We will have Ahoy multifunctional, so we can connect rooms, making sure that whatever goes on in the plenary sessions, you can, of course, follow all of that in your breakout rooms. So, if you can have a good conversation about that with your trusted clients, then we can equip our rooms. And when you need that, you know, the costs will be less for everybody. And this is how we can go on in the future together. So you could compare it with the time that we've had with all the terrorist attacks, you know, when we had to have so much security. You know, of course, this increased costs, and we all bore those costs. And I believe and hope that we can all bear these costs. We, first of all, don't want to focus on profit. We want to be able to host a safe event. So basically, you're also saying that the industry has to take the lead, right? We have the know-how and experience to do that, so we can give them a menu basically of what is possible and explain what the costs are. Judith Huisman of Meeting Select. I think your clients, of course, will compare locations. What have you noticed? Are things looking up? What are your customers and clients doing? So, as of yesterday, we see a gradual increase in the number of meetings, small meetings and trainings, especially. So, the smaller type of meeting. And what we see in our neighboring countries, it's a variation on that because through our platform, you can see locations worldwide and book them. But law and regulation is very different per country. So if there is one industry that is best in organizing and take into account risks, it is the meeting and events industry. And what is very important to me, and I would like to call on the Dutch authorities, please look at what our neighboring countries do. In Switzerland, you can have events with 300 people, and if you look at the cost aspect, you can then reduce the price again. You have your fixed costs, your variable costs. So let's take a look at how we as an industry could convince the authorities to maybe consider business events as a separate thing and demonstrate how good we are at this. Then we can have a different discussion in the future. This brings me to Arjen Paardenkoper. You are specialized in hospitality as a lawyer. Again, different countries, different laws, different regulations. So once we get started, we will see legal issues. You know, how do foreign visitors regard the national legislation? How, maybe it's not the right word, but how could you sort of hedge your risks? Or how could we move about as safe as possible? Well, it is trial and error, isn't it? It is a hard sell, you know, when you organize a conference and everyone flies a plane and they sit next to each other, and then you have to keep 1.5 meters distance at a conference. You know, you have to give your personal details in advance. You get a questionnaire. You have to disinfect your hands in alcohol. You know, your hands, not your tongue. So we need to explain these things, and there are so many different approaches per country. I think we will move to a system pretty soon and look at what is possible and what is not possible. I think you are worried, and it's not necessary. I believe that we can go to a normal situation pretty soon. It is impossible that you can take a train and a plane and be all together in one small compartment, and that as a conference organizer you have to comply with, the 1 meter rule, and that you are liable for all kinds of things, whereas this industry takes it very, very seriously. This is a sunny moment. If a lawyer says, and we are all known for our pessimism and hedging the risks, but now we have a lawyer here who says we do not need to worry so much, especially not in the Netherlands, because we are way ahead of the pack. Yes. And in this entire debate here, we forgot to include the fact that, within now and 2 years, we will find a cure or a vaccine. I was in Singapore in 2002. We had the SARS outbreak. It was very innovative that your temperature was measured when you got off the plane. And this happened today. I had a temperature of 36.2, which was fine, of course. I was put at ease. And the SARS outbreak lasted 2 years. We are 20 years down the road. Technology has improved greatly. We are able to have very clean air conditioning, just as clean as in the operating theaters, which is actually the case in airplanes already. KLM has a system in which they can provide 99.6% clean air in the planes, and it costs money. And who is going to pay for it? I think it's unrealistic that it's the organizers that need to pay for it, because there is an end to any budget, and conferences will always be there. In my own industry, I have loads of conferences to attend, and it is also about self-discipline. Local authorities will have to go ahead with us, and participants will have to take it very seriously, but we'll have to continue to attend. Niels Klinkhamer. So we've heard many different perspectives. How will it translate to the market? Well, for me, costs is not relevant. It's about who bears the risk. And the biggest worry of any initiator of anything is getting the budget and closing that loop. That is the biggest concern. And I believe in the Netherlands, and as chain partners, we have to invest in good solutions for a risk-free environment. And you could do that in different ways. What we see now is that many suppliers in the chain are being more flexible in their cancellation policies. And that's an important signal, that we all have that confidence. As an organization, we use the pre-finance and guarantee fund a lot, so there's an opportunity there. On the local level and on city level, you should profile yourselves and offer tools to organizers to take away those risks. So it's not actually that relevant to ask ourselves, are we going to be more expensive? No. How can we make it more attractive for the organizers to come over? Yes, and we all know that money makes the world go round. Basically, you're saying, so if we can show the added value of a certain location, then you're already doing the right thing. Yes, we can really stand out compared to other cities and countries with that. We are very good at planning, and Ms. Huisman said this already. And I think that if you can take away the financial risk is already a greater good to convince people. Isn't that a great positive note at the end of this second block? And we have a further discussion on this block too, which will happen in Bunnik location with Maarten Wessels. This is an empty room. That is because everybody is now watching what goes on here. But later on in Bunnik, they will have a debate about the statement that I will give again. The added costs of the 1.5 meter events for the larger part will end up with the customers. That is not something we believe, that is a statement. You can be in favor or against and make sure that you have an interesting discussion. This is what will happen in Bunnik later on. So if you have a specific interest in that, you can move towards the Bunnik location. Not yet, though, because we have our third subject, and we have talked about it already, the international market. And we are going to talk about that today, because at the beginning of this year, we believed that 2020 was going to be the best year ever. We would make our mark. The Song Festival, Eurovision, the Grand Prix, the European Championship, to name a few. Now the landscape is very different. And prediction of Schiphol is that it can last until 2024 before the market is level to what it was before the corona crisis. It is relevant for all those reasons to talk to each other about what this means. First of all, suppose indeed that the international market is not going to come. It could lead to overcapacity. It could mean more competition in a smaller internal market. And another issue is, should our industry this year fully focus on the national market? Or should we dedicate a lot of attention to the international market? And then the final issue that we should address is, can we come up with anything together and use that image that we built as a country? We made a name for ourselves with top international events that we created. There's a reason why we have US guests today. So can we come up with anything together that we are at the pole position, making sure that everybody believes the Netherlands is the safest and most professional location to host an international event? So that is what we're going to do. I would like to start with Jos Franken of NBTC. Jos, what have you been hearing so far when it comes to the international market? How is it developing? Thanks, Roderick. It is dangerous to, of course, make general remarks because it differs per segment, but the overall expectation, whether it's leisure or business, recovery always starts internally. And then after that, you will see that recovery will start in neighboring countries. Of course, relates to the fact that other people are able to travel to the Netherlands in different ways that feels more comfortable, like your own car, compared to, of course, a plane full of people. And after that long haul, that is, of course, a general assumption. And what it will depend on, amongst other things, is, of course, guidelines per countries and what countries agree on amongst each other. Tomorrow we will hear more about that. We will hear a lot about corridors. So for leisure markets, the neighboring countries as a corridor are very important. A lot of tourists come from neighboring countries, but for the business events, I can imagine that a corridor with the US and the UK is of the utmost essence. But this requires the guidelines and situations are comparable in all these countries when it comes to corona or COVID-19 outbreaks. So we have to, in the end, want to have a healthy mix of national or domestic and international in the short term. That became very clear to me when I was reading this small report about Skip. Someone did some research stating, what if everybody resides in their own country, celebrates holidays, so everything. So the Dutch in the Netherlands and the French in France, etc. That would actually cost 16 billion euros. And 1.8% of the GDP would just disappear. So it is very clear what the consequences would be. Would that apply to the Netherlands, such a huge amount, because we are such an open economy? It applies to many countries, but we were in the top 10 globally as to how relevant that is. And it has everything to do with what you're saying. So a healthy business mix, domestic and international, but also you said something about new business models, new target groups. It would be very interesting whether you can sort of ride that wave of Belgium and Germany. People feel a huge need to experience the Netherlands. And maybe we can attract the business events segment from Germany and Belgium more and lure them more to the Netherlands. And that is more plausible than looking and focusing on long haul. Basically, you're already directly answering that last question. So we should focus directly on the international market. But first step is close by. So looking at the corridors, neighboring countries, and build that confidence with them. Yes, and one addition, and we talked a lot about we. Who are we? Because when you go international, chain partners and ecosystem becomes bigger because you're talking about national authorities that will have to have a say. You will have to look at airliners, train companies, taxis. That is a huge challenge. But what was already important before Corona, being able to work together cross-border, is even more relevant now after Corona, because confidence is not only realized within the industry. If somebody messes up, we all suffer. BCD Travel, Jeroen Duiker. Of course, you focus on international traveling. Do you agree with Jos Franken of NBTC, or do you have a different experience? Well, I actually agree. And as a start, we should focus on the regional and national markets and, of course, furnish proof and demonstrate what we can do as an industry. And then with that proof, we have to go to Asia. We have to go to the US. In general, Asians are amazed at how we deal with this and look at the measures to counteract all of that. They don't believe in our process. The Americans are very difficult to convince to come to the Netherlands. They are very paranoid at this moment. So we do have a long way to go. And I think that with the smaller and medium-sized enterprises, we can work in the Netherlands. And if we demonstrate that we can do it, then this is a step. Basically, you are saying the touchstone that they are using is how our country dealt with the COVID crisis, whether you've had more or less victims, but basically what culture am I going into? And you say the Chinese don't understand. They feel that we have done too little. Yes, not accurate. Our response was too slow, and we still don't cover our mouth. We don't have face masks. So all these initiatives that we should have taken and we didn't, we are doing well. And now, of course, what will happen in 3 to 4 weeks' time and what will be the consequence? So basically, the selection of countries that you want to focus on, you have to take into account how they perceive us. Brings me to Jaap Bakker of ICA, right across from me. What is your analysis? Do you agree with the idea to start regional and national before you look at long haul, or do you see different developments? Well, I think it is very clear that we first have to demonstrate locally that we can do it, and therefore organize some bigger and smaller conferences and events and making clear that there are no effects, side effects. That is one. And then we have to focus on other countries. And we do hope that within Europe the borders will open very soon. And we will have to hope that not only tourism or leisure will get started, but also the business side of things. And then looking at other countries, of course, We go abroad with ICA. We have conferences in Taiwan. They will start on the 7th of June. They will be allowed to organize mass events, so they are way ahead of us. And we will have to, of course, look at how many people are you going to go there with? Well, our conference, normally we have 1,000, 1,500. It will be smaller this time. It's in November. We will have a hybrid version. And we will work with a multi-hub system with a number of locations that will communicate with Taiwan as the center. That is pretty exciting. That sounds exciting, but it's a step ahead, isn't it? Yes, but the decision was made. And we will not only have less people attending, not because they're afraid or not allowed to, but of course the economic effects of the crisis. Maybe people won't invest in such a long trip and stay at an expensive hotel, right? So we will have to wait and see. Because that is especially relevant. How much financial flexibility do people have to invest? Then let's look at Maurits van der Sluis of RAI Convention Center. So if the focus will be mainly national, what does that mean for your location specifically? Well, then we would have to win a lot of national business. I don't believe that, though. I believe that the new normal is actually the temporary abnormal because it's not normal. Of course, the national market, which we service in our location, I do believe, though, that the international market will get started gradually but slowly over the coming 18 months. But, we opened today at 3 o'clock. We opened a corona test center in one of the big halls, and you can get a test. So we started, and you are confident that also the international market will come to you. And now you probably always have a long planning ahead. So people are less inclined to book something for next week, but in 2 years' time, well, of course. And the good thing is that we have many bookings for 2021, 22 and further, but we see that for the coming summer our agenda is empty, and only in September we will have a first national and international event. And these organizers are determined to have it take place. So you can try. What type of international meetings is it? Is it European? It's European. One event is normally a worldwide event with 10,000, and now it's 3,000 to 4,000, and they will come from all over Europe. Wilbert Lek from Rotterdam Partners. This sounds very positive. And of course, you, heard many positive things from Ahoy rather than from RAI in Amsterdam, of course, being from Rotterdam. What is your idea for the city? Yes, I would like to comment on what I've heard. Internationalization is a must. The Dutch market is too small. And I would like to reverse the question. I don't think we should wait until others set the conditions for us. No, I believe that we here at this table could actually work on setting the standard. And I think, you have to be agile and resilient, but we have everything. We need to look at safety. The Netherlands is known for its innovation. We solve many difficult matters throughout the world, and I think today we took a very important step also in a very innovative way, and that is the only way. Making sure that parties abroad can be convinced that we can do it in a safe way. And first of all, we will need national events to prove that we can do it. And the national and European markets are fine to practice. But marketing and communication, of course, focus on the international market. The lead time is so much longer than we think. So it's crucial as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the story that we want to tell. Yes, first of all, Dutch proposition, but we need to start building on that proposition and tell the world. Yes. We have a reputation that we can organize top events, and we are also known for our innovative character, so that combination has to be marketed. Yes, Deutsche Turlings from NPI. So mails every day from NPI, of course, Noortje. Within that NPI community, how are we doing? How do they see us? The MPI community is, for a large part, in the US. Of course, many things are going on, and the sentiment is different. They are in a completely different phase still. They are looking at Europe, though. It is no secret that not everybody is equally enthusiastic about the measures that we've taken. But I think the overall opinion here, and I agree with that, is that we should demonstrate that we can do it. And the Netherlands has always been innovative, and also within MPI always set the example in Europe. So again, also a last minute registration, so we have everything translated for our international guests. This proves, of course, and confirms our reputation. People see us and consider us as a front runner. Should we use that reputation more, or do you think we should do anything else? So the innovative part of it. So I guess as an industry, we should market our strengths better in that respect. Yes, absolutely. An event like the one we have today really help support that image. We are good at organizing hybrid events. We've seen some great examples of that. And I don't care in which country it happens, as long as it happens, so that we can kickstart our industry. Peter Willem Bergmans, MCI, you have an international perspective on things. What is your idea? Are many people very skeptical as to how we handled Corona? At the same time, we are innovative. Well, we have a can-do mentality. That much is clear. We have all the tools to make it work, and I think everybody here at this table and the industry in the broadest sense, we have an international orientation, whether it's inbound or outbound, organizers, suppliers. This is our playing field, and let's take our position. Again, it's a temporary situation. It'll go away. We don't know how long it'll last. But I think we're on the right track here, and let's keep it that way. That is a great statement. Let's keep it that way. And let's finish that subject here. And this is a subject that we will talk about here in Amsterdam, in the other building down the road. Yes, they are already watching us, and everybody who is interested, the statement is the Dutch MICE industry for the coming year should fully focus on an exclusively national market. Again, that is not our desire. It's a statement to evoke an interesting and sharp discussion, making sure that we look at all the perspectives that we have. This brings us to the end of the table of 20. We talked about the psychological aspects of visitors. We can be the accelerator, but we can also be the industry who cautions. We talked about the economic perspective. It'll be more expensive to organize events, but if we are smart and if we set the example for our clients, then we will work things out and we could evenly distribute these costs. And maybe we don't even have to have that discussion. And we talked about the international market that for the short term might not look that good, but basically everybody at this table agrees that we need to keep our focus because it will get started, and then we have to use our image as a top organizer of events, an innovative country that makes things possible. That concludes our meeting right here. at the table of 20. A big thank you to the guests here. Thank you for watching. And please do not leave us. Please go to the breakout rooms and you can participate. You can chat, you can ask questions, place your remarks. We will include them in the sessions. And then again at 4:45, we will have a short plenary session to finish this day. And of course, we will look ahead as well. Thank you for watching and good luck.